Cheers, everybody. What's up? Sorry, I had to get a little bit of coffee because I'm very sleepy. My son has broken in 4 teeth in a week and a half. Madness in this house right now. But anyway, he's napping. I'm very tired. We have a great topic this time. I'm very excited about it. A lot of big things are happening, but I always find time to hang out in my Discord. If you're part of the Patreon, it's only $1 a month. I'm never going to raise the price. You get all the perks, all the behind the scenes stuff, Discord invite, specific, dedicated chat channels, all that fun stuff. But we actually have a very good topic. Our good friend Cybernetic Phoenix, you probably saw his name in the credits a lot over the past year. He's been a long-time patron, big-time supporter. Had a great question, and I thought this would make a fantastic topic because it's something that I'm thinking more and more about, that I'm starting to dabble more and more in, and it's a very good topic. So I'll put up the question right here, but I also want to read it. He says, "Hey Wes, do you draw or paint from imagination? If so, how often do you do it? Or does anybody in the Discord do it? I'm figuring the steps to do so. I've been kind of eager just to do stuff directly from my brain instead of specifically using references. It's kind of nice to have both options available." I completely agree. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about not only working from imagination and how that can be beneficial, but exercises. So there's two trains of thought, and we'll get into this during the kind of time-lapse stuff. You're either not a real artist if you can't make stuff from your imagination, or you're shooting yourself in the foot because you're not using reference. There is some middle ground, and that's kind of where I like to fall. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some exercises you can do to build up your confidence working from imagination. How often do I do it? What do I recommend doing? Do I recommend studying certain things? And we'll kind of get into that. But yeah, so this time I'm actually going to be using, I think I'm going to be using Painter 2022. So there's actually a video coming out in the next few weeks where I kind of look more extensively at Painter 2022. I had one Painter video, and man, I still get some, not hate mail, but people are mad at me about my opinion about Corel Painter. So I did it. I buckled down. I bought Corel Painter 2022, which was highly recommended by a lot of people in those comments. And then we're going to take a look at that. But we will be using that. We might jump from that to like PaintStorm Studio, kind of back and forth. And yeah, I'm just working in values on this one. It's going to be a bigger piece. It's going to be something that's going to be in the portfolio. But that's what we're going to work on. And let's talk about working from imagination. Yeah, so working from imagination. So before we even get started, I wanted to actually read one of the responses from the Discord because I think it surmises a lot of great advice. Yeah, and this is actually from the mayor, the flexin' mayor right there. I definitely encourage drawing from imagination. It will show what you know and what you need to work on. That being said, what I think stops a lot of beginners from pursuing art is that they don't learn fundamentals and build up their visual library. It can be very difficult to realistically portray something if you've never drawn it before. Drawing from imagination is so important for exercising your creativity, and it's nice to draw the stuff that you want to draw. So I would certainly encourage you to do both, but if you're struggling with a painting, then definitely pull up a reference. That nails it. I think Mayor hit the nail on the head right there. So fantastic response. And yeah, I'm just going to expound on some of those because I fully agree. I think the balance and the trick of being a visual artist is the goal is getting what's in your brain down onto a canvas or onto a paper or whatever. right? That's why we wanted to do this in the first place. We thought of an idea, we wanted to get it down. Or very rarely does an artist start being an artist because you want to be a copy machine, right? You don't want to just do studies and references and master studies and all that stuff. And while those are great and they're a lot of fun and I love them, they're actually probably one of my favorite things to do while painting is studying somebody else's style and learning and things like that. You have to ask yourself, why do you do those studies? What voice do you have? What are you trying to do? And that's where I think the imagination part comes in. So before we dig into imagination, I want to talk about kind of a separation between two key ideas. So there's imagination and then there's creativity. And I think they are separate things. Okay? So a lot of people think like, oh, I'm not super creative, I don't have a great imagination. And they use those kind of interchangeably. But I think where we can start breaking this down and getting to make a little more sense of this whole process is to differentiate what we mean by imagination versus creativity, because they are separate. So imagination is thinking of an idea and also trying to bring it to fruition through your skills, through, what have you. Creativity is how do you solve problems. That's all creativity is. I think I've said this before on the channel, but I say this during a lot of my private mentorship stuff. The most creative, TV character or book character or whatever, the most creative character I think I've ever seen is MacGyver, because of how he solves problems. It's very creative, some of the stuff he comes up with. So creativity is not, oh, I'm going to think of, this unicorn has 20 legs and he's a surfer and then he can juggle, and that's nonsense, right? That's just, you're saying things and it doesn't mean anything and there's no gravity or weight to it. To me, that can be imagination, but that's not creativity. Creativity is how are you going to execute? How are you going to solve the problems that maybe your imagination has brought up? Hey, you want some big battle scene, but you don't know how to paint people. You're going to have a hard time. Not to say it's impossible. Given enough time, you can do it. I believe in you. I trust in you. You can do it. It's going to be hard. That's where reference comes in, right? So that, in my opinion, using things like reference and knowing when to roll them, when to fold them. How's that song go? Something like that, right? So that's the important part, is knowing where your limitations are. And that can go a long way in making you better faster. And we talk about getting better faster all the time. That's one of those. You have to be very honest with yourself that you can imagine a lot of things, but can you create them? Can you actually put your skills down there? And I know this is kind of the big theory part of it that we're going to talk about right now, but I want you to get that kind of in your head about separate the two, separate imagination and separate creativity, because while they do work together, they are separate things that you should think about in a separate way to actually make the steps of your piece. So one of my favorite exercises, and it's great because it can be very kind of dedicated and you can really focus, or it can be something that you just do with your kind of brain on autopilot, is making forms. What does that mean? Making forms. So instead of trying to sketch or draw things, like I'm going to draw this kitchen sink, I'm going to draw this alligator, I'm going to draw a tree from imagination. Well, tree might actually be okay, but what I'm really going for, I don't care about drawing things. I care about making forms. And notice I don't say shapes. So shapes are the two-dimensional kind of look at what a form is. So whenever you draw a circle, you use the line and you make a circle, or you make a square, your triangle. Those are your shapes. But making those a form, so making that circle a sphere by giving it lighting, giving it, a highlight, Terminator, cast shadow, all that stuff. making a square a cube, giving it some sort of source and place in a three-dimensional space. It's also called shapes within shapes, and I talk about that in my book, which will be out at the end of this month. But shapes within shapes goes a long way because it forces you to start thinking three-dimensionally without reference. So a good exercise you can do is if you draw a sphere, draw the circle, get it shaded, stuff like that. If you do need help on the reference on that, go ahead and grab a reference, because the hard part is now in like the upper left corner of that sphere, have a cube coming out of it and then light it correctly. You know what I mean? Like, so the shadow is going to be different. The light, how's it going to catch? Like, you're really quickly going to realize, oh my God, I don't know how light works. And it's easy. It's a circle and a square. Like, how hard can this be? These are the most fundamental shapes. But put them together in a three-dimensional space, and good Lord, like, the difficulty skyrockets. But at first, don't use reference. Just go for it. Just try it. Be like, man, I don't know what this is. Where does this shadow go? Why does that highlight go there? Would there be a rim light on this highlight because the box catches it at different angles? And, if planes are basically a change of direction, what does that mean for a circle? If there's no change of direction, but it's smooth, and how does that differ from a cube? So this goes back to what the mayor said about fundamentals. This is where your shape language comes into play. Now, you're not making a thing. You're not making, I'm going to do a big master study of the Eiffel Tower. Like, keep it super basic. Basic does not necessarily mean easy. And I want you to really realize that. This stuff's hard, man. It's difficult. Doing this from imagination is very mentally taxing. It just is. But you need to practice it. You need to practice working from imagination. So you can also make other forms, like if you don't want to do the geometric shapes, if you want something a little more organic, make, you guys remember that Robin Williams movie Flubber? Like slime? That sort of gacky sort of like, go ahead and draw that. Draw like a weird, shape that has like weird bulbous like doesn't even need to be anything, but then go ahead whenever you have that and go ahead and pick a light source. Be like, okay, it's going to be lit from the upper right, and then go ahead and make that weird shape thing, the weird flubber, make it believable. Give it some highlights, give it some shadows. Another great thing, Feng Zhu has a whole video about this, and it's great. I highly recommend going to Design Cinema. Look that up on YouTube if you haven't seen his stuff already. He's been doing this for years and years. One of the best concept art teachers on the planet, in my opinion. He talks about drawing trees. And trees are great because trees don't really have rules. They kind of do. Your roots have to be stronger than the further away from the roots you go, the more narrow, there's rules that you can follow for a tree. But the shapes themselves can be very organic. You can make it like a haunted forest dead tree with no leaves, or you can make it a really mighty oak tree that's very stoic. You can look at reference for how that stuff's textured, but really make the shapes from imagination. And that's kind of a best of both worlds. And that's where I like to fall into play. In my opinion, I don't think enough people use enough reference, myself included. I need to use more reference, and I use reference for everything. And I need more reference because it just makes for a better image. I'm able to see something and notice things, and how is the tree bark lit? Oh, I see, because it's a little more, it doesn't bounce the light because it's a little more weathered, so it's actually gonna kind of soak up some of that light. And what does that mean? There's no real hard highlights. It's just very, mid-tony and that type of stuff. You're going to start noticing things when you have reference for everything. It's helpful. But I do see the appeal. of wanting to work directly from imagination. I mean, you look at Kim Jong-il, you look at Carl Kapinski, you look at these people, and they're incredible. Just, oh, I'm going to open up the sketchbook and I'm just going to do this little doodle of a Viking. And you're like, that's the best Viking art I've seen in my entire life, man. Are you crazy? Like, and they just do it. They do it within 20 minutes. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good sketch. They turn the page and do another one. And you're like, how in the world do they do this? The reason they can do that is because of decades of building their visual library, decades of knowing every angle that light hits a face, and the bridge of the nose is casting a shadow on the cheek, and then what's the zygomatic bone doing, and what's the chin doing, and how's that facing in relation to the forehead. And they got it. They've done hundreds, if not thousands, of referenced studies over and over and over and over and over for decades, not years, decades, tens of years. The amount of work they've put in behind the scenes is staggering. And that's how they can do it. Because essentially now they're not working from imagination, they're working from memorized reference. They know it. They just know it's not imagination anymore. They don't need to imagine it. It's just there. They got it. Oh, a face? Yeah, let me do a face. Boom, done. Because they've done it so many times. That's where you need to be. You need to get to the point where you're so comfortable with a certain subject matter that you can draw it at any angle backwards with your bad hand in black and white and color. I mean, that's mastery, is what that is. And working from imagination, I think, is kind of that true test of mastery, which is why I think a lot of people get so like, oh, I'm not a real artist unless I can draw something from imagination. I don't necessarily think that's true. In fact, I don't think that's true. But I think a lot of people put too much weight on working from imagination. Another study, or another way to work on this, and this is actually what I do. So if you want to know what I do to help myself work from imagination, this is what I do. So as you can see, we've been working on this piece right here. It's kind of a dragonborn guy, and he has the background going on. Kind of the cool fantasy stuff, very inspired by like Randy Vargas' work on Magic the Gathering. Kind of nice grays and reds and oranges and stuff. I want to keep it fairly monochromatic in that way. But basically what I did is I made my own reference. So got a 3D model, did quick painting of the background, composed those two in Blender, lit it a certain way, but I didn't use reference on really any of it. I got the model, I got, which I paid for, got this stuff, and now I rendered this out, and now I have a composite. And now the composite, I have everything I need. My reference is done. Now I'm going to go and work with imagination. I'm doing the brush strokes. I'm looking at some of the forms and what does that look like, and could that be better? Can that be worse? So let me lower this and change that and smudge this and push this and liquefy and all that stuff. Basically using my instinct. So I'm not just training my imagination, I'm training my instinct. Do I know what makes for an effective looking image? That's where I think a lot of that confidence comes from. If you start with a good base, and then you start making decisions from imagination on the base, you're getting the best of both worlds. Your foundation's good. It's sound, you know it's right, it's lit correctly, like it's exactly what you need, right? So that's why 3D can be a very powerful tool. You make your own reference. Then you can go in and do a number of things. You can use that as a reference and then go ahead, open up a new canvas and like draw from life, almost like it's a still life. And then that way you're working on your, the proportion. Can my eyeball see the correct, angles and shapes, and can I transfer what I see down onto a canvas? So there's one practice. And that's going to help you because you're going to get more natural working with your natural brush movements and your sketching and stuff like that. So that builds confidence. But what I'm doing is I already have everything composited. I want to go in and see if I can make it better. If I want to make. I always think of that Rob Zombie song, "More Human Than Human," which is the Nexus 6 or the Tyrell Corporation's motto in Blade Runner. They want to make a human that's more human than human. So I want to make this painting more of a painting than a painting. Like, I see what I have. How can I make it even better, even more energetic, even more interesting to look at, more painterly? How can I do that? And what that does is that trains my eye to see patterns, but also I get that sense of, I get to a finished product faster. And then I want to do another one. And then I want to do another one. And then I want to do another one. There's, I think we talked about it. Maybe we didn't talk about it. This might be in the book as well. No, I think we did talk about it on YouTube. To where if you give a group of 10 people, the lesson of, hey, in 30 days, I need you to give me the best painting of this apple that you can possibly make. You're graded on how good and finished that painting is. You have 30 days. And then in another room, you got another 10 people. And you're like, all right, here's this apple. You're graded on how many paintings can you make of this apple that looks somewhat complete. How many? You are judged completely on the quantity. On the quantity. I don't care how finished it is. I don't care how good it looks. I want you to keep making them, but I want you to try. I want you to really look at it and study it and stuff, but you're going to be judged on how many you make. I can bet you money that at the end of that 30 days, the team that has done the quantity, the amount of them they get graded for doing as many as possible, their ones near the end of the 30 days that they made will probably be better than a majority of what is made from the team that had one painting to do. Why is that? Because through repetition, you're going to learn more. You're going to get the angles. You're going to get the shapes. You're going to get all that. And then, God, by the end of that 30 days, I bet that team that did the quantity, I bet they could draw you an apple from imagination. I bet they could. Because they've done it a billion times. You know what I mean? Like, just the repetitions. But people say, oh, I'd rather have quality than quantity. Why not both? Do both. I'm doing a thing called May Sketch a Day right now, where every day in May, that rhymes. Every day in May, you do a sketch. Now, what does that mean? Could mean anything. It could mean that you do a master study. It could mean that you just do something from imagination. It could be that you're doing a value painting, that you're doing black and white, monochromatic, whatever. Different styles, different techniques. You can really try stuff on May Sketch a Day. It's not about making beautiful, perfect art. It's about trying things that you may have had an idea for. And then, it doesn't matter if it didn't turn out good. You're going to do another one tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like, with that mindset, it's very powerful. Because you're not afraid to make mistakes. Because, I made a mistake on this one. That's fine. Either I can fix it right now, or you know what? I just learned my lesson. I'll do it better next time. And then you move on. And you get better because the amount of stuff that you're able to tackle is way bigger and way more than it would have been if you're spending 300 hours with limited visual library, with a limited painting fundamentals, with limited understanding of light. You're spending 300 hours on something you think is from imagination and is going to blow the roof off. You're going to be endlessly frustrated during that entire time because you're going to be bashing yourself in the face, being like, why can I not do this? Why am I not good at art? I can't believe it. Oh man, I thought I was good. Oh, I have so much work to do. Oh, it's going to be a very downward spiral. But if you don't care as much, if you're like, you know what, man, I got 30 of these to do. I got to knock these out. 31, actually. May's a 31-day month, right? I don't have a calendar in front of me. I can never remember. I need to learn that little knuckle technique to where you January, February, and the ones where the knuckles are 31 days. I don't know. Something like that. Anyway, that's a weird tangent from being sleepy. So, yeah, I don't know. The whole imagination thing has always been weird to me. Because if I'm looking at somebody who worked primarily from imagination and then someone who worked from reference, I will, almost without question, prefer the person that worked from reference, or prefer their work. It's gonna resonate more. It's gonna be more. I'll have something to hang my hat on. You know, it's why with science fiction stories, like if you read books and stuff, a lot of them deal with humans, right? Humans are the main character, a lot of times, not every time, but you know. There's going to be something human or anthropomorphic, or, you know, they speak English, or, you know, there's going to be some way that it connects with the audience. You know what I mean? Because if it's all just, if you wrote a sci-fi book and you made up your own language and you wrote the book in that language and you couldn't even really describe the entity that the main being is without that language, and nobody knows that language, but it's all from imagination, it's trash. Like, that's what am I supposed to get out of this? Nothing. I need something to hang my hat on. I need something that pulls me in, and that's where reference comes in. That's where you get the believability in light and shadow and form. You study and you study and you study. There's no easy way around it, man. You just got to put in the work. You know, drawing from imagination is great, but really, I think that mix of being able to get your basics and your fundamentals in through reference and study, then, let's say you're 50% of the way in through your painting, close all your references and delete them. Like, get them off your hard drive. Now it's up to you and your instincts to pull that last half out of the hat. Still make it look good, still make it high quality, but use imagination, use your taste, your instinct, your gut to push it to that next level, to that final. And you know what you're going to start getting out of that? You're going to start getting this thing that people search for all the time. They always ask, how can I get it? How can I get this thing? Everyone has their own thing. How do I do it? And that word is style. Style, I think Neil Gaiman said, style is the mistakes that you keep. And I agree with that. So go make mistakes. Go have something that's really solid foundation. Hell, do this. I actually highly recommend this. Go onto a reference image site. So like pexels.com, unsplash.com, any reference, free to use, royalty free reference. Don't like just take copyrighted images, but just go and go on the Smithsonian website. They have some really great high resolution images of classic paintings that you can kind of freely use, and they're kind of public domain now. They give you those rights. Get a painting or get something that you really like the look of, whether it's an environment or whatever. Open it in your Photoshop or your Clip Studio or Krita or whatever you're using. Add something to it. Try to make it look believable. Do it in the style of the reference. Do it in the style of the thing that you have. So if you get like a high, I guarantee you I did this. You get a high resolution image of a Sorolla or a Velasquez or a John Singer Sargent or an Anders Zorn. Add a sphere, a floating sphere, just next to one of the people in that painting. But have it look believable. Have it look like it's always been there. What you're going to notice, you're going to learn a ton from that. You're going to learn, how are they using their colors, and where are the shadows coming from, and what's the light? That's a great way to do a master study without doing a stroke-for-stroke recreation. And you're working from imagination. You have your reference, but you're creating something and putting it in something that already exists, which is really what you do as an imaginative realist painter anyway. That's what I do with Warhammer. That's what literally I'm working on 4 Warhammer pieces right now for Cubicle 7. It's the best work I've ever done because it is, man, we've been pushing this book. Once you guys see what this book is, it is unbelievable how good the art is in this thing. Everybody is at the top of their game. Super stoked for this. But it was difficult, man. It was a lot of 3-4 a.m. mornings, like bashing your head against the keyboard stuff. But what was great is it's the most imaginative work I've ever made. Period. They gave us free reign to kind of tell our stories, to do the things we want to do, and make it as gritty and real and cool and painterly and like, oh, it's everything you want. And it's my best work. Because there's been a lot of time that, our art directors and, producers and stuff would be like, you guys got the reference, you guys got it down, now go in and paint. Go in and make something. It's great. Anyway, going off tangent, I'm just super excited about it. I have one open right now that I'm kind of looking at and I'm going to work more on. But no, it's super dope. I can't wait for you guys to see this stuff. But working from imagination, just to put a kind of a bow on this, it is very important. It's a muscle. You have to exercise that muscle. So the number of ways you can do that, make shapes, make forms, make just random sketches and doodles. Don't think about it too hard, but try to make it believable. Try to light it correctly. Try to do this. It doesn't even have to be a thing, right? Sometimes you can sketch a thing. You can look at a pencil and then draw it as it's referenced and stuff. And then at the end of it, maybe cut the pencil in half, and use the right lighting and all that stuff. But like cut the pencil in half on your sketch. Little things, like just do little nuances and tweaks and stuff from your imagination. You're going to start building up your confidence, and then you're going to realize you're going to start doing more and more problem solving, the creative side of it. Your creativity is going to start coming out on how you can solve these problems using your imagination. You're going to get the best of both worlds, I promise you. So go do one of those master studies, man. Get you an awesome, go get the Mona Lisa, Get the Mona Lisa, go look at how the, forms and the shapes and, how's Da Vinci doing those shadows. And then go ahead and make a sphere right next to the Mona Lisa's face, but have it look natural, have it look real. And you'll be really surprised at what you learn from it, and your confidence is going to go up, and then you're going to worry less and less about being quote unquote a real artist, because of your problem solving, you can work from imagination, you can solve any problem, you're good to go, man. And that's the goal. So go out there, have fun, make some cool paintings, and I will see you all next time. Take care.